going to get a really broad heat, and the whole piece will move when you try to sculpt into it. You'll need to adjust the feed of oxygen and propane for whatever type of flame you want. I can make my flame smaller and cooler, or bigger and hotter if I need to heat more of a surface area. Right now I'm going to have it a little bigger because I'm going to want a lot of full body movement. I don't need to move just one spot. I need the entire piece to be moving. Now I'm going to cut into the brain using a tag, which is a metal tool, kind of like a knife or a pizza cutter, that is going to just push into the glass and create that nice strong ridge. And as you can see, the entire piece is moving when I touch it with this tool. And now I'm going to just spot heat it and carve in a little more of that shape. One of the two most important tools in glass blowing are gravity and heat. And right now I'm using gravity and letting the brain fall onto the tag to create a little flat surface, and I'm using its heat to just cut into it to create a smaller neck of the piece. And now I can really start to visualize my brain and where everything's going to be. Now Pearl's inflating a little bit because it got a little deflated. Like I said, gravity is an amazing tool to use, but it can also be a big hassle. Your glass is always moving, and like I said, it really needs to be continuously turning unless you want a lopsided piece. And for this brain, I actually do kind of want it lopsided, so we're going to be flipping it and holding it still a lot. Right now I have my tag and a cork pad, which is a pad pretty much lined with cork that is good for getting a good surface shape. You can shape two areas at one time, and you can really get a more rounded shape than you could with a tool like the Jax or the tag, which is so flat. And right now I really want the brain to not be flat on either side. I want it to have a very round, natural kind of feeling. And yeah, that's pretty much the basic shape I went for. Now I'm just going to use a torch to spot heat that crease and carve into it a little bit more, get a bit of a deeper, more defined carve there. Then I'm going to push in to create a lobe, and it's pretty much going to create a cross with the other ridge I created. In there, I'm going to use a butter knife and just define the edge of that and get a little curve on it. And using a butter knife is really nice because you can get small marks and surface marks. Surface marks is any mark that is going to be just on the surface of the glass. It's not going to move the entire body, and that's exactly what I want right now. Alright, now for the fun part. Now I'm going to start carving into the glass with my butter knife and creating these ridges. And I'm basically just creating little snake swirly type channels to represent the ridges and folds in the brain. And which is a lot of fun to do because it's pretty much, it is very repetitive, but you can have a lot of fun just getting abstract with it and moving the glass around. As you can see, you really are constantly retorching and carving. The surface won't stay hot for too long. Not hot enough to sculpt into, at least. So this was a very long process, creating the ridges. When you're doing glass blowing, you also need to have a very gentle touch. Even though glass can be brittle, it's also very fragile and very delicate, especially when it's either extremely hot or extremely cold. Right now I've stepped outside of the bench so I can get a better angle, and most of the sculpting that I normally do will usually take place outside the bench, and Pearl will hold and rotate the brain and take flashes. It's just a quick heat in the furnace so the glass does not crack. As you can see, the brain itself is looking a little bit differently colored, and this is because it's a lot colder than it was before, and we've really reduced the overall heat of the core of the glass and the main body, because if it was hotter, then it would be moving all together whenever I tried to create a ridge in there, and that would not be good. It would deform the shape that I created. Now, this piece took about a total of 2.5 hours to make, and I think most of the time was spent just creating the crevices in the piece. Alright, right now I'm going to use my jacks to clamp down on the neck of that piece so I can get a smaller opening so it'll be easier to tap off when I remove it from the pipe. Before I tap my piece off, I'm going to apply some powder to the surface of it. And powder is another form of coloring glass. It's similar to the chunk I picked up, except for it's crushed up into a very fine powder that I will sprinkle on top of it and then brush away with a small broom. And doing this, I'm going to get the powder in the creases of the brain, but not have it covering the entire piece. Powder is really good for sculpted objects because you can get into those little crevices and kind of define those areas that might be lost when the piece has cooled. Alright, I'm now going to prepare to knock this piece off once again. I'm going to just touch up on that line, and using the tag is going to cool that area just a little bit. And right now Pearl is getting a gather of glass that it's going to become a curlicue brainstem for this piece. And once she's ready with that, I'm going to use a little bit of water on the end of my tweezers and just put that there and then tap it off onto that little pedestal there. The water on the jack line of this piece is going to create a crack pretty much in that specific area, and the temperature change is going to be enough that I can knock the entire piece off with just a few taps from the little baseball bat. So Pearl is ready with her gather, so I'm going to knock off this piece, and now the molten glass is attached to the sculpture, and she's going to wrap it around the rod I'm holding to create a curlicue. And as you can see, again, a really good example of the properties of glass. It really can just go wherever you want it, any shape you need. Now she's cut it, and I'm going to remove the rod and then position the brainstem as I want it. We're then going to spot heat the top of that brainstem, just so we can smooth out where the cut marks are, because those are going to be very sharp if we don't do that. And now the piece is done, and it's going to be placed in the annealer, which is going pretty much a kiln that's going to take the temperature of the piece down overnight, very slowly, increment by increment, so it doesn't crack when it's finished. And that's it. That's how you make a glass brain. Thank you very much.